Hi everyone, this is April with ConsciousConvos. This is our second live stream. I do apologize that I was out sick last week, and so I opted not to do the live stream. Today we're going to be talking about something that I've been seeing a lot on YouTube lately. It's narcissism versus empathy, particularly the super empath. And one thing that I want to really focus on is this actually reality? Is this actual science, or is this just pseudoscience? And based on my research, based on just my observations and my knowledge of science and knowledge of the actual studies, I'm going to say it's a little bit of both. So first of all, there is no scientific term of super empath. There is, however, in psychology, a frequent mention of something called a truth teller, which is very much what a super empath is. Empaths are also not in any psychological literature that I've read. However, I have read literature on individuals with heightened sensitivity. So I think, while I think that, yes, it is a very real concept, I think that a lot of the information out there about it is pseudoscience. It's not actually really true. But let's dive into it a little bit, first of all. So if you're watching this, you probably already know that a narcissist is someone who is a colloquial term for someone who has been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, or who has narcissistic personality traits. And this can mean that they appear overly confident in themselves. And then they put everybody else down around them. It can be or there can be the more covert type that's a little bit sneakier about that, and it's harder to tell. Then we come to the term empath. So in my opinion, an empath is either a highly sensitive person or not. But they are an individual, probably a highly sensitive person, but an individual that either grew up in or has survived an abusive situation where they had to anticipate what was going on with their abuser. They had to anticipate the abuser's needs. They had to anticipate whether or not the abuser was going to lash out at them. So it was this like very highly tuned intuition, I guess is the best word to use for it. Another word for this, for the individuals who have come out of this situation but have not done their healing, is a codependent, which is a word that is used in psychology. So that's the second word. And then we come to the super empath, which all of that is you take that codependent and they do the healing. They go through the healing, they really know who they are. And so they're just less susceptible to the same kind of abuse again. They pick up on things more quickly. It's harder to gaslight someone who fits these characteristics. So I think of it in terms of a super empath, but at the same time, like I said, that's not an official term. But there is, like, when you describe it, it actually, it makes sense in that regard. Now, the pseudoscience continues to talk about vibrational energy and things like that, and I don't know what I think about that, to be honest. Like, to me, that's starting to kind of devolve into the pseudoscience, but it really does come down to the fact that there's a difference between individuals who have been through abuse and have not done any healing, who have not resolved their codependency issues, and individuals who have been through that situation and have come out the other side, have done the work, have done the healing. And so how does that all fit together? So I've been watching a lot of videos about like how the super empath destroys the narcissist and all this crazy stuff. Um, but the reason that I started watching this stuff is because I have been experiencing situations off and on throughout my entire life where I would have toxic people come into my life and just be repelled by me. And I thought it was me. I thought that there was something wrong with me and that was some reason. Fox? I am so sorry. It looks like my pet bird has. There he is. He took off, and I didn't know where he went for a second there. Okay. Um, where was I? Trying to remember. Oh, yes. I was talking about my life. No, I've had a fair number of toxic people come into my life off and on throughout, and things would just kind of devolve very quickly. And I never really understood why. I honestly thought that it was me, that there was something wrong with me. And that's why like these people didn't want to be around me. And the more that I'm learning, and the more that I'm really seeing that, as I'm seeing the information laid out before me and I'm reflecting back on the events of my life, I'm starting to understand what's going on. Plus, you add my knowledge in psychology. For those of you that have seen my first episode, I have a master's degree in psychology with a specialization in ABA. I actually had a BCBA for a little while before I left the field, and I've since let that expire. But I did obtain it, passed the test on the first try, all of that. But anyway, like, back to the explanation. So what I've observed is that when people behave in a toxic way, we're not even going to go to the place of saying that these individuals are toxic, just that their behavior is toxic. Because there's varying degrees. Because not everybody that behaves in a toxic manner at times is a narcissist. And so I want to make that distinction too. But people that behave in that manner don't like to be called out on it. They don't like to be told, even like for the purposes of improving themselves, even if it's for an educational purpose. I learned a while ago that like if somebody acts out or somebody is disrespectful and doesn't know it, like we're talking about microaggressions at this point. If someone engages in microaggressions, towards me, it's usually some type of microaggression related to sexism, but for other minorities, it could be related to race, it could be related to any of that stuff. But they engage in something of that kind, and I think in one case somebody was just talking over me, and they weren't really giving me opportunity to say anything. And so I finally would just like I told them like, hey, like this is what you're doing. This is covert sexism. And they went ballistic and were like, I'm not sexist and all this stuff. And it was just like, well, you behaved in a sexist manner. And it may be just that you are conditioned to believe that this is how you talk in these situations. Or maybe you do that with everybody. I don't know. But I learned real quick. You keep your mouth shut and you just like, you let them know, hey, like, I just don't think this is going to work out, and you move on. Now, I've had people get upset about that even, but I don't give reasons anymore. Like if I don't want to work with somebody on something, or if I don't want to engage with them, I just say, hey, this isn't working out. And because in my experience, they don't want to know the reason. Now, the reason for me telling this story is because a truth teller or a super empath, somebody who has gone through that situation, is very aware, They care very much about the people around them. And when they bring stuff up like that, they try and do it in a very gentle manner, and they try to do it to help the other person, not to tear them down. It's still not received well. People don't want to know what's wrong with them. And that's not me saying that like wrong with them in the sense that there's everybody has things to work on in some way, shape, or form. But you also have to have that relationship with them in order to bring that up. But I feel like I'm rambling now. It's been kind of frustrating because I end up in these situations with people who behave in a toxic manner. So I set boundaries with them. They flip out. And then I'm left thinking it's me. And the thing about it is that when you are a truth teller, or if you use the pseudoscience term super empath, you're going to end up rubbing people the wrong way completely unintentionally. And so I've been coming across that. And it's something that has bothered me. And it honestly makes it hard for me to interact with people. And I mean, you can probably tell just like how awkward this whole live stream has been. But, and there's also the fact that I'm going without an outline today, which is not going to be the norm. Today, that's just what I did. But like I said, in my experience, it's not, so coming back to super empath beating the narcissist, it's not even about beating them. It's just being resistant to their games. So like the super empath usually doesn't even care about defeating the narcissist. Like I know, like anytime that I've been around narcissists, it was never. First of all, I didn't realize that the people in question were narcissists. Other people labeled them as narcissists afterwards, or like I had a light bulb moment. Oh, that's what they were doing. But these are typically either they're short-lived, they're work-related relationships that I have no control over. Things like that. Like these are not people that I've been able to connect with. And like understanding that, first of all, not everybody connects with everybody else. Like that's just how it is. Like you have to find your own tribe. But secondly, when you're very authentic, you're very aware of who you are, how you feel, and you say it like it is, there's going to be a fair number of people that aren't going to want to hear that. They aren't going to want to be around it. And so that kind of brings me to where I am today, where I'm just kind of in this sort of uncomfortable situation where, like, I don't know really how to move forward when I meet new people, because my default setting is radical honesty and just being open, or at least as open as it is safe to be in those circumstances. I don't just open up and tell everyone everything, but I do tend to be fairly open. And so, because I know who I am, and it's for the purposes of really getting to know the other person and letting them get to know me. So I guess it's trying to figure out how to move forward in that kind of situation, which I don't have the answers. There is something else I wanted to bring up that I saw on another channel, and this was from an actual psychologist. So I do regard this a little bit more highly than some of the other channels that I've watched. And what she said really resonated with me, and it was that when you are dealing with a toxic family system, all of the people in the toxic family system who adhere to that system are narcissists. So now I don't 100% agree with that they're all they all have narcissistic personality disorder. But and I haven't delved deeply enough into that topic to really and truly understand the ins and outs of it. However, I would say that it is very true that they have narcissistic personality traits. Now, I grew up as an adult child of an alcoholic. So I went through that whole process. I grew up in that family setting, and I fit the description of somebody who went through narcissistic abuse. But I couldn't really understand why. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around it because, like, and to this day, like, I don't necessarily think that my family members had narcissistic personality disorder. What I do think is that, first of all, my father was an unrecovered alcoholic. Now, he no longer drinks to my knowledge, but I also don't believe that he ever found recovery. My mother was very, very codependent, and I discovered later that she is an adult grandchild of an alcoholic. And that's something I'm going to be talking a lot about on this channel, is adult children of alcoholics, adult grandchildren of alcoholics, and things regarding alcoholism, because that's what I grew up in. I grew up in that type of a family system. And a lot of the things, like when I finally broke away, a lot of the things that they describe about what a toxic family system does, about them being kind of narcissistic in that way, it's not them, it must be the person who left. They literally, that's when all the gaslighting really started. I actually grew up as kind of the hero child, and then when I first left home, like after college, going away to college wasn't so bad. I wasn't really scapegoated then. It wasn't until I moved away, and I started to have financial difficulties because I was trying to live on my own. But it was because I needed to get away from these crazy people in my life that I had left in the first place. But I was wholly unprepared for living on my own at the time. And so then I ended up becoming the scapegoat. And when I did come back home, it was the longest 9 months of my life. It really was. And I finally escaped. And I had other family members coming out of the woodwork who I couldn't get to talk to me otherwise. I had a cousin tell me, "No, you weren't abused," and it was like I ended up blocking her. This was over social media, and it was just like, I'm not going to deal with that. I know what I went through, and I mean, at that point in time, I was still at a place where I hadn't really done all of the healing. I was starting to. I was trying to. But I hadn't made a total and complete break. And every time that my family would attempt to try to contact me again, it just made the situation worse. But I managed to finally break free. And so while there are a handful of people that can still get a hold of me, they rarely do. And they're only allowed to do so because they don't gaslight me. They don't try and tell me that I didn't go through what I went through. And so, yeah, that's, like I said, so I do really identify with a lot of the things that are said in both of those. And I do agree, where they talk about, to some degree, about the situation with a super empath to a narcissist, but a super empath being kind of bulletproof to some degree. It's true. Anytime that I've come up against people that I would say are probable narcissists, I've seen through them right away. Like, it's not something that when the people where the people around me didn't see through them. Um, that's not to say that every person I've had an issue with has been a narcissist. That's not the case. Sometimes it's just people that have their own healing to do that they're not ready to do. um, I've had that come up too. And so there's a lot that I still am trying to learn about this subject, about this whole topic. Um, Either way, like, I have always felt different from other people. And honestly, I didn't feel like it was that it was in a situation where I was better, even though you would think that. Um, I actually always felt, like I said, that there was something wrong with me and that I was different because of that. I still believe I'm different. I don't really believe that there's something wrong with me, but I'm still trying to figure out and understand exactly what makes me different and if there's a way that I can still manage to connect with other people without these sorts of things coming up. So that's all I really have to say for today. I feel like I rambled on a lot. If you have any questions or if you have any comments about it, feel free to comment below in the chat thread. Again, I'm not going to accept like any kind of harassment. If you're gonna like try and bully me as a result of the things that I've said or throw insults or anything like that, then you'll be blocked and reported. But otherwise, as long as you can remain civil, I would love to have some kind of a dialogue going and be able to talk more on this topic. Maybe you have more to add to my experience. Either way, that's all I've got for today, and I will see you next week.